Donovan Mitchell was made available by the Utah Jazz and has been engaged in conversations with various teams for those teams to acquire Donovan Mitchell's talents, right? The Utah Jazz are essentially planning on hitting the reset button, want to recoup young players and assets to try to rebuild the Utah Jazz from the ground up. They traded Rudy Gobert and got a bunch of draft picks. They're very likely going to do the same thing with Donovan Mitchell. Get some young talent, unload some other players. I'm sure Donovan Mitchell won't be the last move if they end up moving him at all. And so it'll be curious to see what ends up happening. But the number one runner for Donovan Mitchell for quite some time now was the New York Knicks, right? The New York Knicks have like 8 first-round draft picks, and they have young players and talent and things like that to get the deal done for Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell would love to go to New York and play in New York. It's a big market. All of those things, the Knicks, they want Donovan Mitchell, although it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me personally, but the New York Knicks seem destined to try to get Donovan Mitchell if the price is right. The way I look at it is you have Jalen Brunson, who is essentially the same player. They're both 6'1". They both do a lot of the same things. Neither really plays defense. So do you really want your backcourt to be Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson? But hey, if the Knicks want him, the Knicks have enough to acquire Donovan Mitchell. But it was reported by Shams earlier today that the Knicks and the Jazz trades have stalled, that they are no longer in negotiations, and it's been about 2 weeks since they last had a conversation in regards to Donovan Mitchell being traded. But there are other teams that are being engaged currently for Donovan Mitchell beyond the Knicks, and those teams are the Washington Wizards for one, which that, I guess, makes a little more sense. Again, you don't have the best defensive backcourt in Bradley Beal and Donovan Mitchell, but you need talent at this point, right? I mean, you got Bradley Beal, and you don't really have much else. Washington, they don't have any like marquee young guys. Like they don't have any young guys where you're like, man, that's a guy that we need on our team. So I'm curious to see how the Wizards would be able to make out with this. I mean, they do have draft picks and stuff, so maybe they do a package with just a bunch of draft picks and kind of have that compensation, and then are like, here, pick 2-3 players, whatever that you want, and then hopefully you're running Bradley Beal, Donovan Mitchell, and maybe you keep Kristaps Porzingis, something like that, or maybe you can keep Kyle Kuzma. And you kind of have these 3 guys. Again, defense isn't going to be that great, but if you get the right team defense. If you can put up a bunch of points. I mean, Donovan Mitchell is a proven scorer. He's a guy that can show night in and night out that he can deliver and provide, 25 to 30 points a game. Same thing with Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal can get you, 25 to 30 points a game. So these two would be quite the pairing. I don't think that they would make them a contender or, I think that they make the playoffs. But I think beyond the playoffs, that's probably where this stops. But it would be a step in the right direction, right? You get a guy for Bradley Beal, another star, and now you don't run the risk of Bradley Beal requesting a trade, wanting out, something like that. Hopefully this duo can work together and work out great. The problem is like, who plays point guard? Who plays shooting guard? I mean, I know Donovan Mitchell, point guard, but like he's more of a shooting guard, and he's had Mike Conley the last few years. If they can make it work and they can figure it out, then great. That works great for the Wizards. And now, like I said, they have those kind of base pieces that you need. Kristaps Porzingis is an expiring contract, not this coming year, but the next coming year. So maybe you could even offload him and, start clearing cap space, or you ride it out for 2 years. And now you have some salary to go put some pieces around these 2 guys. I mean, it's a possibility. Like I said, defensively, they're not going to be very good. Offensively, I imagine that they would be very successful as long as they could kind of figure out, like who's going to be the facilitator, how much are you going to put across? Because, even teams like Boston, right? They have at least Marcus Smart that kind of, sets everybody up, gets into the flow of offense, stuff like that. But I mean, especially if they have like a free-flowing offense, there's ways to make it work. And I do think that these two could be very effective as a duo. Just again, what are the Wizards going to be able to give up that's more enticing than some of these other teams and some of these other packages? I mean, that's yet to be seen. But another team that was mentioned, Charlotte Hornets. Now, the Charlotte Hornets are in quite a situation with the whole, Bridges situation, the Miles Bridges situation. Don't want to get too much into that, but if you know what I'm talking about, great. If not, Google it. It's very known, very public in regards to what he did. So Charlotte's in a very tough spot right now, right? As far as like they need to get more talent. This team, again, got just eliminated and annihilated in the bubble game. So again, underperformed 2 years in a row. And the hope is to get back to being a contender. And the problem is, again, is that like, what young talent are they going to be willing to trade if you're Charlotte? Because the Utah Jazz, they're in rebuild mode, right? And if they're going to trade Donovan Mitchell, they're tanking. So they're not going to want like a Gordon Hayward, a Terry Rozier, guys like that. Maybe a PJ Washington, something like that they would like. If what was going on with Bridges wasn't going on with Bridges, then that's somebody else that they may be interested in. So outside of that, it's like, what are you going to give up that would be enticing enough for the Charlotte Hornets? Now, in this pairing, you have LaMelo Ball as the point guard and Donovan Mitchell as a shooting guard, so it's much more of a natural fit. LaMelo, he could play off the ball as well if need be. You'd have guys that I just think Donovan Mitchell would be a more natural fit here. I just have a hard time getting to what is the package going to look like for Charlotte. Utah might look at Charlotte and go, hey, even if they get Donovan Mitchell, they're still probably not even a playoff team. And they have a lot of chaos going on in their organization. So maybe if we get some of their draft picks, they might actually be some good draft picks, right? Because you're looking at it as like, Donovan Mitchell, Bradley Beal, the Wizards. Again, not a great situation. Maybe they're still not a playoff team and we get some lottery picks, something like that. But Charlotte, I don't know if they're a contender, even if you get, or definitely not a contender, but even a playoff team, even if they get Mitchell. They definitely would be talented, and it depends on what you give up. But there, there's a lot of questions still with like Gordon Hayward. You still have guys like Kelly Oubre. So they could put some nice stuff together. If you were a team that needed to clear some salary, or they could put some nice stuff together if you wanted to compete now. But as far as like a rebuilding team, Charlotte Hornets don't have a lot of like, we're a rebuilding team, like these assets are great, so I don't know how Charlotte would get there. Now this duo could be very good, could be very lethal, right? LaMelo Ball has been just a stud, and I imagine is going to continue to only get better and continue to only improve. You get a proven scorer in Donovan Mitchell, a guy that can do that. He's about that. He can get his own shot. He's not a guy that needs to be set up. You can give him the ball and just tell him to go. And so he's a guy that can create, on the ball, off the ball. If there's not much that the defense is giving him, he could still find a way to get in and score. You're talking about a guy that was putting up like 50 points in playoff games. Like, the guy is a certified scorer, and Charlotte would hugely benefit from a guy like that. But it's just like, what do you have to offer? What else is your team looking like? And they're likely 4 years away from being able to be in a position to put some solid guys around these two, and the fact that you're likely losing Bridges, that's tough in and of itself. Because if you had something like Bridges, Mitchell, and Ball, like, and you could have that trio, I would imagine that they would want Bridges in the trade for Donovan Mitchell. But if you could find a way to kind of keep him, then yeah, that would be great. But I just don't know how Charlotte's going to get there. I don't know how they make this happen. It would be interesting. It would be kind of cool to see, like, what would a LaMelo Ball, Donovan Mitchell backcourt look like? Would it be good? Would it be like mediocre? Donovan Mitchell too. Like, as poorly as he has been on defense, he came into the league as a known defender. He's 6'1", but he has a 6'10" wingspan. So he has the length to be a great defender, especially against opposing point guards and shooting guards and stuff like that. He just seems to have checked out completely in that department. And I think a lot of that has to go with, he's required to do a bit of everything, right? He has to defend, he has to score, he has to facilitate, he has to, it's a lot on his plate. But nonetheless, I think it'll be interesting. But one way or another, I still think Donovan Mitchell does eventually get traded. I don't think Utah's in a rush, and Donovan Mitchell doesn't seem to be really trying to force the issue or really push a trade too heavily. So I think it's one of those things where it's like, we're in a position, if you're Utah, to wait and see what develops, like kind of let things marinate. You clearly have several teams that are interested in making a deal, so kind of let them outbid each other, and then, Donovan Mitchell goes to the highest bidder if it makes sense. I do imagine the Knicks kind of get back into conversations and discussions soon. I also think that, the whole Kevin Durant thing is holding this up heavily, right? Because depending on what happens with Kevin Durant, could force teams to be more aggressive for Donovan Mitchell, right? Because let's say Kevin Durant does go to Boston. If you're a team in the East, Are you like, man, like, are we going to be able to compete with Boston with Kevin Durant and Jason Tatum? You know, like they eliminated us last year, or, you know, this was a team that was just in the finals and now they got Kevin Durant. Like, should we go and try to make a real push for Donovan Mitchell? And that just drives up the ask, drives up the demand. So I do think a lot of this falls on Kevin Durant and like what ends up happening with him. And then I do imagine a lot of these teams become a lot more aggressive in Donovan Mitchell talks and discussions. But those are my thoughts and opinions. And as always, I pass the question on to you. Let me know yours down in the comment section below. What do you think? Do you think, yes, Donovan Mitchell, any of those teams, it works? He's going to get traded sooner or later. It's a matter of when, not if. Or do you think like, no, like Utah, if the deal ain't right, they'll keep him. They can kind of rebuild around him. Unload some of the other guys, maybe go at a run this season and kind of see like what they have, what pieces are they keeping, and then make decisions next season based on that. How do you feel about this? However you feel, let me know how you feel down in the comment section below. That being said, hit that like button. Helps me out a lot. Lets me know you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, followed by the bell notification. Stay up to date with all things sports. Join this wonderful community and all of our discussions. I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you.